Hi everyone, welcome to Let's Crack UPSC CSE English. I am Sandeep Bhushan. I have 8 years of teaching experience for civil services. I teach international relations, internal security, analysis of Hindu editorials, and analysis of the Hindu newspaper. And this is in regards to tips to crack prelims in 90 days. But prior to that, you have a notification that is for the learners that you have to subscribe the Crack UPSC CSE, which is India's largest platform. By subscription, you get access unlimited live and recorded courses from India's best educators. And along with that, you would also have a daily live classes wherein you can chat with your educator, engage in discussions, ask your doubts, and also go ahead with the answer polls. You also have live tests and quizzes. You can evaluate your preparation with our regular mock test and quizzes and thereby get detailed analysis on your performance. In regards to the structured courses, all our courses are structured in line with UPSC exam syllabus and that will help you best prepare for it. You also have the unlimited access, that is the subscription. When you have gone ahead, you will get access to all our live and recorded courses. Then you can watch it at your ease or at your comfort while with the mobile or with the laptop. And you have top educators at Unacademy. They are Sudarshan Gurjar, Ayush Sanghi, Prakash Kumar, Mrunal Patel. Along with the top educators, you have the special classes by Dr. Roman Saini sir, Dr. Siddharth Arora, Lokendra Chauhan, Rakesh Verma, Ashish Malik. You also have the upcoming courses which are lined up in our platform. They are capsule courses on 250 multiple choice questions for preliminary 2020. You have the comprehensive course on public administration. You have a capsule course on geography optional. And you also have a Let's Crack UPSC CSE 2021. And for the learners, it is in regards to the subscription. You have subscription wherein you can go ahead with 12-month subscription and 24-month subscription. Wherein for the 12 months the price is 40,000 and for the 24 months the price is 52,000. But if you are using my code SBT10, you will get an offer of 10% discount, and wherein the 12 months the fees of 40,000 would be discounted to 36,000, and for 24 months by using SBT10 my code you can avail 52,000 course for only 46,800. So if you look at the difference between the 24 months and then 12 months fee, then you will have only around 10,000. That is 46,800 is for 24 months and 36,000 for the 12 months. So I recommend for you that you go ahead with subscribing 24 months, wherein you can have the benefit of going ahead with the or learning from the top educators. And now we go ahead with the in-depth analysis of editorials and articles of today's Hindu newspaper. If you look at today's editorial, you have the first editorial which talks about the market mayhem. That is, we all know that there is a turmoil which is going on in the global market, and that turmoil is in regards to the coronavirus. And added to the coronavirus effect, there is also that the global crude oil prices have got down very drastically. So because of that, there is total decline or there is unwarranted decline in the global markets. So we would look at what exactly the editorial or the editor is talking about it. So we can see that because of the turmoil, there is some kind of sentiment in the investors. What kind of sentiment is that? That is a negative sentiment which has been erupted across the globe in all the markets, in the global markets, because of the oil price plunge and due to the coronavirus. So what has happened is this has created a negative sentiment and then the entire market has turned bearish. That is, it has declined a lot. So this has affected not only what do you say, any one country, but it has impacted all the countries, including the US market, Japan market, China market, European market, Australian market, and all other countries. The share markets have been affected, and there is also an effect on the Indian market, that is Indian share market. So the Bombay Stock Exchange also has been hit very badly on a, what do you say, on a single day. It has fallen down to 1942 points, or which was close to 5.2 percentage. And this fall of 1942 is the lowest in the 52 weeks. That means almost an year these kind of lowest, the point of Sensex hasn't been experienced in India. And because of this shock, around 1200 companies have seen the decline in their share market or in their prices. So around 93 percentage of them have been declined. And then because of this negative market sentiment, investors are looking to exit. So obviously investors will invest in the market, that is share market, only make profits. So when the markets are shrinking or it's falling down, so the investors would wish to quit the market, exit the equities, and there was lot of impact on the equities. So the equities have been the major impact, and then the investors, by exiting from the equities, wanted to go ahead with some kind of gains, or at least make sure that they cut their losses, to make sure that they would have a little bit of, not higher gains, but little bit of losses. To cut their losses, they have exited from most of the equities. So it is not only investors which have quit from the market to make sure that they reduce their losses, but also along with the investor, it is the foreign institutional investors, FIIs, have also made sure that they also have experienced, or they were in the stream of selling all the shares. And then the net sellers in the Indian equity holdings this month has been that they have sold around 10,658 crores of rupees from the stock exchange, from the Sensex. That means it is very clear that the foreign institutional investors would also wish to move out of the Indian equity holder products. But in turn, the Indian markets have been very drastically hit. That is Bombay Stock Exchange, and also the National Stock Exchange has been very badly hit. And because of these circumstances, that is the coronavirus, spread of coronavirus, because of that there was shortage of supply and trade restrictions, and also because of the price reductions in the crude oil prices, India has experienced few challenges. So we'll look at the challenges what India has experienced, or the Indian economy. So Indian economy has been reeling under pressure since long time, and because of the existing economic crisis, not crisis, economic fall down, or the growth of the economy was not high as expected by the Indian government. So along with that, what has happened is this widening coronavirus outbreak has created a lot of pressure on the Indian economy, that is Indian GDP, and it has increased in regards to the making sure that it would also increase the inflation in the future, and that we would make sure that that would not be as a 2008 financial crisis. As this is a challenge, the government of India along with the RBI would make sure that they would come out with the few measures for implementing proper solutions to counter this challenge. And then we have another challenge wherein we have seen that S Bank, which has been bankrupt or insolvent. So the RBI has come to the rescue, that is the central government, and the RBI has come to the rescue of S Bank and making sure that the SBI will bail out to the S Bank. So when the SBI is bailing out at this juncture, when the markets are reeling down, that is are bearish, which are falling down, at this time it is a challenge to the SBI bank or the public sector banks or such to the Indian economy. And the third challenge is, as we have seen that S banks is under insolvency, and then S bank has also have the holders, that is they have the bonds called as additional tier 1 bonds. So now the challenge to the SBI and to the center and to the RBI is that these bondholders who have the additional tier 1 bonds would approach the court, and in turn that would create a legal challenge. So the bondholders, if they approach the court, it would create a legal challenge. So added to the impact of the coronavirus and the slash in the oil prices, this is the third challenge wherein India would face. And then the best intention of the center and the efforts of the RBI, that is, we have seen that the center and the RBI is making sure that, or it is coming up with all efforts to make sure that it tries to resolve the issue of the S Bank's bankruptcy, and not only that, it wanted to make sure that it also protects the interest of the depositors' money. So in this entire scenario, the center and the RBI has to make sure that this kind of challenge should not undermine the wider banking sector stability. So, whatever the markets have been slashing, that should not be as a challenge, or in fact, it would be as a challenge when the banking sector stability is at stake. So, these are the challenges, and then we would come out with the measures. So, what is a measure? So, as we know that the central bank is making sure that they come out with the issues which have been posed by the COVID-19. So it is not only the central bank and the RBI, but we have also seen the Western countries, that is Western economies or the Western countries, are making sure that they try to equalize, or they have some kind of fiscal measures put in its place in the particular country to make sure that the economy is stable. Fine. So that means the Western countries have incorporated some kind of fiscal measures to counter the slash in the market which has been posed by the COVID, and then the prices which have come down in regards to the crude oil prices. So along with the Western countries, we also have the US Federal Reserves, wherein the last week the US Federal Reserves had made an emergency cut in the interest rates. So it has made an emergency cut in the interest rate, making sure that they would handle the kind of exigency posed by the COVID and then the slash in oil prices. So this can make sure that these are the few steps which are by the Western economies and then also by the US Federal Reserves. So looking at the measures, fiscal measures taken up by the Western countries and the US Federal Reserves, yes, the RBI and the center would also need to make sure that they unlock few of the issues or the challenges. When they unlock the challenges, then they would come up with the measures. So the measures is to make sure that, or to ensure that there is adequate liquidity. That means there has to be adequate liquidity at this juncture wherein the GDP of the nation is not that impressive. So along with the global market and the Bombay Stock Exchange and the National Stock Exchange crashing, wherein the investors are pulling out the money, the FIIs are pulling out the money from the from the stock market. So it is very important that the RBI and the center make sure that they ensure adequate liquidity. Why do we should have adequate liquidity? This adequate liquidity will make sure that it bolsters sentiment. What kind of sentiment will it bolster? It will bolster, or it will support, or it will increase the sentiment of the individuals in the market, and this will make sure that there is some kind of economic stability rather than having economic fragility. So the measures have to be taken care to make sure that the impact of the global markets along with the Indian stock exchange which has collapsed has to again recoup, and then there has to be a stability in the Indian economy. Now we would go ahead with the second editorial, which is talking about, or which talk about scoring low. So what does this low and what score is the editor talking about, and which score is low? So here we are aware that the parliamentary panel is submitting report to the Rajya Sabha. So in the process of the parliamentary panel submitting reports to the Rajya Sabha, the parliamentary panel also has submitted the report to the Rajya Sabha, making sure that there is not adequate playgrounds and electricity available in the Indian government schools. I repeat that there are not adequate playgrounds and the electricity which is required in the Indian government schools. So it very clearly states that the parliamentary panel that there is lack of power in schools, that is electricity in schools, and then there is making sure that the budgeter or the budget which has been granted for the school education and literacy for 2021 is not actually impressive, and whatever budget has been allocated, it is not been used to the maximum extent. So the panels also state the data for 2017-18 that only 56.45 government schools have electricity. That means the almost 50% of the government schools are without electricity, and then 56.99 percentage of the government schools have playground. That means here again, if you look at 55 percentage of the government schools are without playground. That means they are not having electricity or playground, and also 40% of the government schools do not have the boundary wall. So this is the findings by the parliamentary panel to the Rajya Sabha. Not only that, the panel is also very depressed about the information which it has got for the end of 2019, that the findings in regards to the district information is that there is neglect of toilet construction, and there is failure to build toilets for girls in secondary school. So not only in regards to the toilet construction, and for the girls also to make sure that there is separate toilets, and there is also that the point is that maximum number of laboratories which are required for the higher secondary schools are not in tandem with what it is wanting or demanding. So we have laboratories for the physics, chemistry. So all this physics, chemistry, the laboratories are not in according to the required instructions. And the allocation of the school education and literacy department has also cut 27.5 percentage, 52 percentage. That means the budget or the allocation of the amount, that is 22,725 crores, which has been amounting or estimated for 2021, has to be rising. Is it rising? It is rising, but the amount of allocation, or then after allocating whether the funds are being utilized, is a big question mark. So the findings of the parliamentary panel talks about this, and then we have challenges. What are the challenges? The first and foremost, the challenge what we have is that, as we all know, that almost in the year 2016, India was the leader or founding member of the Intersolar Alliance along with France, and it has made sure that we would make sure that we will not depend on coal for electricity, but rather depend on renewable energy. And then the Prime Minister of India has made sure that we will go ahead with the Intersolar Alliance, wherein we will not focus or we will depend on renewable energies. But the challenge is that India has not yet electrified significant number of government schools. So when we were talking about almost half of the government schools are without electricity, when India was a founding member of the Intersolar Alliance, India has to take an initiative that India, rather than depending on the coal or the nuclear energy, we have to depend on the non-renewable energies, and then make sure that we focus on solar energy, and then by that we can illuminate the left out government schools which are without electricity. And the next challenge is that we have the concurrent powers in India, and as per the concurrent powers, the center operates the sponsors or the centered sponsored schemes which are in regards to the school education. So it covers the states. So when it is having that power, concurrent power, to make sure that it operates or it sponsors and implements the school education program. And when it is implementing the school education program, when we are talking about the center sponsored, yes, it is the Samagra Shiksha and midday meal scheme. So the Samagra Shiksha and midday meal are the one which are the sponsored centered, the sponsored one. And then we have to make sure, that is the government has to make sure that it implements in toto, in what you say, complete spirit. But we have seen it is not being done so. So that is the another challenge. The third one is that the center and state must realize that they talk of demographic dividend. So here the keyword is demographic dividend, has little meaning. That is, when they do not provide enough funding for proposals. We have seen that center sponsored and state sponsored education. So when the proper funding is not been done, or there is proposals been done for the funding, but it is not utilized, or it is, what do you say, underutilized, then it is the problem with the administrative machinery. That means it is very clear that it is a failure of the administrative machinery, and making sure that these challenges have to be rectified. And once you rectified, or once the challenges can be rectified, it can be rectified by having following measures. That is, India has gone ahead, that is our Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he has gone ahead with 100-day program when he has taken over, or when he has come for the second term, Modi 2.0. So when government has gone ahead with 100-day program for education, so it is in regards to the education, it was in regards to education. So what is the measure that we would discuss here is, as per the 100-day program for education, the same kind of mission mode approach has to be implemented for the infrastructure. That is, we are talking about the infrastructure, that is the electricity, that is in regards to the playgrounds, and in regards to the boundary wall. So the same kind of 100-day approach has to be implemented. So once it is implemented, we can have, or the other measure is that the solar power, as when we were talking about inter-solar alliance, that kind of initiative, when it has been implemented even in India, to larger extent of maximum schools, the solar power can be installed in schools, and toilets built for all students in 100 days. Again, we are very specific that the measure that whatever programs, 100-day program for education, they can implement for infrastructure, when we are talking about electricity, and also for building toilets infrastructure. And then the other measure is that it is not that, because we were talking about the challenges here, we were talking about the administrative machinery failure. Yes, there is, or there could be administrative, and there is administrative machinery failure, but we cannot totally pinpoint that. What is the measure that is? Along with the government, it is the community participation which is very much required, or it is imperative. Why it is imperative is that with the community participation, we can make sure that the objectives of the government, that is Samagra Shiksha, that is in regards to the Samagra Shiksha and midday meal scheme, that is the government one, can be successfully or satisfactorily met. So community participation is another measure. And as we also have seen, then almost 55% of the school do not have playgrounds. Yes, that is a challenge, but we can come out with a measure that we can identify suitable common area or a space which is close to the school, government school, and then we can use that for the playground. So there is a measure. If there is no ground for the government school, we can identify suitable common space or ground, and that in turn, talking to the concerned authority or concerned owners, we can use it to use it for the playgrounds of the school. And we can also upgrade to accommodate students. Because of having, or because of having the playground, we can have more of footfalls of the students. And then later on, by using this initially or temporarily, we can later on, or the permanent arrangements can be made. So initially we can have the suitable common area to have the playgrounds measure. And the other one is, the government run school sector needs fund infusion. The keyword what I have using is here fund infusion. So the fund infusion has to be for the government run school. So when we are talking about community participation, when we are talking or else the fund infusion in regards to the corporate responsibility, by that or else the private investors can make sure that there is infusion of fund for the government run school, which would be a good cause for the community participation and good cause by the corporate, which can be part of the corporate responsibility, and by the private investors. A public school system that guarantees universal access, good learning, and all facilities has to be among the highest national priorities. So, when you have the challenges and when you have this kind of approach, that is guarantee universal access, good learning, and having all the facilities for highest national priorities, we can make sure that we can successfully counter the challenges faced by our government schools and also in the higher secondary school by following these measures. And the other article is for a universal status of personhood. So here the writer is talking about the status of the individuals to prove himself or herself as a citizen of India. Yes, we are talking about what has happened in Assam. So we have seen NRC which has taken across Assam, and then we have seen around 19,000, initially 40 lakhs, and then later on 19 lakhs have been excluded. That means those 19 lakh people or these citizens could not prove their identity of proof, so thereby they were not considered as the citizens. So that was an issue which was going on in Assam. So now the point here is it the Citizenship Act and the Foreigners Act? Are these both acts denying the weakest in our country, especially in Northeast, that is in particular the Assam, about their rights? So we would look at what the writer is talking about, the entire happenings or the situation or the sequence which has taken place in Assam, and then looking at it at a in-depth, we would look at first the judgments. So we have the judgments which have been delivered by Guwahati High Court. So the Guwahati High Court has given verdicts or judgments in the last few weeks, that the focus was on the judgment that the utter brutality of the state government, that the foreigners tribunals in Assam, that means you have a foreigners tribunal in Assam wherein the foreigner tribunals were actually given a chance, or else the citizens were given a chance to approach the foreigners tribunals to ascertain their proofs and then be recognized as the citizens of India. That means the Guwahati High Court, when it has failed or the individuals could not prove their identity in the High Court, then later on they had an opportunity to approach the foreigners tribunal, and in turn the foreigners tribunals also could not, what do you say, make sure that many of the people who have the required documents to be considered as Assam. So these verdicts given by the Guwahati High Court had cemented the establishment of unreasoned burden. So we have seen the judgment, and what the author or the writer is talking about is that these judgments or the verdicts have given a kind of unreasonable burden on the people. Burden of what? That they are declared as foreigners and they were unable to prove themselves as a citizen of India. So you have a standard proof wherein that is being recognized as an inadequate by the Guwahati High Court and also the Foreigners Tribunal, and the consequences is that they were sent to the detention camps, or they would be sent to the detention camp once they are being recognized not as a citizens recognized as foreigners, they would be deported or they would be put in the detention camps. So when they are put in the detention camps, when they are unable to prove or when they have the inadequate proofs to be consider or to prove themselves that they are citizens in Guwahati High Court and Foreigners Tribunal in Assam, they would further sent to detention camps and then they would be in a statelessness condition. The keyword is statelessness condition. And then you have an analysis by Dax India, which says that as per the analysis of the Dax India, that 787 orders and judgments were being given or pronounced by the High Court between 2010 and 19. And out of this, 97% of the cases were confirmed or are given the case that the petitioners are considered or they are confirmed as foreigners because they were unable to prove their proof as a citizen. And this statistics is clearly surprising. It is definitely surprising because as you have a list of documents wherein the person has to establish or has to prove to establish himself as a citizen. When we are talking about the list of documents, you have electoral photo identity cards, you have voters list, you have land revenue receipts, you have certificates issued by the local panchayat, you have bank passbook, you have PAN number along with the ration card. In spite of providing all this, many of them, the petitioners, were confirmed as foreigners, 97% of the entire 786 orders. So, the document evidence provided by the petitioners is that they have to prove that along with themselves that they are citizens, they also have to prove that their parents or ancestors also belong to Indian or they were born in India. That is when there is a stipulated time, that is before March 25th, 1971. That means March 25th, 1971 is the cutoff date for the petitioners to prove that they are citizens along with the documents and also their parents are also were born in India. So the cutoff is March 25th, 1971. And all these documents which have been issued by the authorities were not been accepted by the Guwahati High Court, or they were said that it is that they need to have more proofs to consider the petitioners as the citizens of Assam. So we will look at what the issues the petitioners are faced in the foreign tribunals. So we will look at what is actually or about more about foreigners tribunals. This foreign tribunal is a quasi judicial body which has been created by the executive order by the Union government in the year 1964. So in 1964 it has been created by an executive order which is a judicial body, that is foreign tribunal is a judicial body. And then its task or its objective for foreigners tribunal objective is to furnish opinions whether a person is recognized as a foreigner or as a citizen of India under the Foreigners Act 1946. I repeat, the Foreigners Tribunal has or its task is to furnish opinion about the person whether he is a foreigner or an Indian, and then if he or she is a foreigner, then under has to be proved under Foreigners Act 1946. And when I'm talking about 1946, yes, this Foreigners Act 1946 was a British colonial arrangement or legislation which was made by the Britishers to stop the migrants into India. It was the British Colonial Act 1946. So the accord is in regards to making sure that it has the power to control entry, exit and movement of foreigners within the territory of the country. So the Foreigners Act, it will have the control of the foreigners. And then the Foreigners Tribunal in Assam has seen two kind of cases since 1971. Especially, what are they are, that is, the persons who have approached the Foreigners Tribunals, they have been referred in regards to the border police. That means they were has a reference by the border police and whose names in the electoral rolls were doubtful. They were marked as D. That means the two cases is that by the border police they were made some reference and in the electoral rolls they were marked as doubtful. So when they are marked as doubtful or their reference is by the border police, that means this reference is mandated in 1984 Assam Accord. So the reference by the border police is made against a person based on the 1984 Assam Accord. So now we would look at the Assam Accord 1984. The Assam Accord is a product of the student driven movement. That means the Assam students have gone ahead with a revolt or revolution, and that was a movement against the migrants who were entering into Assam from various neighboring states of northeastern states, and that has made the students, especially, that they would lose their identity, that is indigenous identity, as a majority, and in turn the migrants who have been migrating into Assam would actually become majority, and then the indigenous majority gradually would become the minority. That was a cause of concern by the students. So it was a student driven movement, and this migration not only from the northeastern states bordering Assam but also from the Bangladesh, because in 1971 the Bangladesh has been liberated. So after the liberation of the Bangladesh, there were lot of migrants who have migrated into India, that is especially into Assam. So Assam Accord was taken into consideration when Rajiv Gandhi, the late Prime Minister, was the Prime Minister of India, and then the accord was taken into consideration, or it was concluded. So, and this accord made lot of stipulations, that is, that the government has to make sure that it identifies and declares as a foreigner whoever enters into Assam between January 1, 1966 and March 24, 1971. That means there is a stipulated time period, that is January 1st, 1966 to March 24, 1971, wherein at this period of time, if the migrants or the foreigners so called have entered into Assam, so they would be deported as per the 1984 Assam Accord. And the names of the persons so identified who have entered after this time period ought to be deleted from the electoral rolls as per the 1985 Assam Accord. And the pact also demands that the government identify those people and on or after March 25, 1971, and then they would be deleted and expelled, that is, they would be deported out of Assam. So this we did talk about the Foreigners Tribunal and Assam Accord to have a better understanding about the kind of judgments or the impact of the judgments by the Guwahati High Court and the Foreigners Tribunals in Assam. Now we would look at the major part of the article, that is, the petitioners who were unable to prove the identity as the citizens or proof as the citizens, that is, you have a burden of proof. So burden of proof, we are talking about whether the burden is for the government to prove that the individual is a citizen, or whether the burden is on the individual himself or herself, that he or she has to prove that they are citizen. So we will look at brief. Under the Indian Evidence Act 1872, the burden of proof in any court of law lies on the person who seeks to claim that he or she is the citizen of particular state. So the keyword Indian Evidence Act 1872. That means it talks or it says that the foreigners tribunal, it would mean that before the foreigners tribunal, it is the government which says that that person is a foreigner, or the person has to prove himself or herself that he is saying truth and is not lying, and he has some few proofs that he is showing that proof on behalf of him as an individual or her as an individual that he is not a foreigner but as a citizen. And section 9 of the Foreigners Act later on has reversed this burden, because as per the Indian Evidence Act 1872, it is a burden of the individual to prove. But later on, this section 9 of the Foreigners Act, we were talking about the Foreigners Act here, which has come, and then that has revised the burden. What it has revised it? It has placed the responsibility on the state rather than the citizen. So section 9 of the Foreigners Act has replaced the Indian Evidence Act 1872, stating that the responsibility to prove the individual's identity as a citizen does not lie on the individual but on the state. And then later on in 1983, the Union government has sensed that the oppressive nature of the burden placed, and it has introduced the Illegal Migrants Determination by Tribunal Act, that is IMDT Act. So after the Foreigners Act, the Indian government has made sure that the foreigners will be identified not by the Foreigners Act but by the IMDT. So the Union government in 1983 has come up with the IMDT Act, wherein IMDT will prove whether the individual is a foreigner or a citizen. And this law, which prevailed Foreigners Act, as I said, shifted the focus to free the citizens from individual to the government. And then later on, after 1983, in July 2005, the Supreme Court in Sarbananda Sonawal versus Union of India has declared the legislation of 1983 as unconstitutional. Sarbananda Sonawal is the Chief Minister of Assam, and when in 2005, when he has approached the court challenging the Union government of 1983, that of IMDT, it has said that the court, or it has declared the legislation unconstitutional. And then the court has found that, or it has looked into the history and facts and said that migrants into Assam are constituted or as considered as external aggression against the state. And then the central government has violated Article 355 of the Constitution. So what did the Supreme Court say? The Supreme Court said that whoever is the migrants entering into Assam, it should be considered or constituted as external aggression. And then it was also said that the central government in 1983 has violated Article 355. That means the Article 355 states that it is the responsibility of the state to make sure that there are no external aggression and there is no internal disturbances. So it has imposed, or it has said that the state has violated Article 355, and then it has come up with the new kind, that is the burden to establish citizenship lies or rests with the individual. So thereby our heading was whether the burden of proof is with the individual or the government. Yes, as we have seen the sequences, it was from the government and slowly it has shifted towards individual. And now we will look at what could be the solution, what the petitioners in Assam or the verdicts, the judgment given by the Guwahati High Court and the petitioners are facing to prove the proof that they are the citizen. So there is a solution wherein, as per the Gautam Bhatia, he has written in an approach taken by African Court on Human People's Right, by the African Court on Human People's Right, that it is a burden to establish citizens might well lie on the individual, as the Foreigners Act says that it lies with the individual, but once he or she has produced a basic set of documents. So we were talking about the basic set of documents, that is the records, revenue records, or in regards to the PAN card, or in regards to the voter ID card. If they are able to prove that, able to produce that, so at this time then the ownership to the state, that the evidence is provided and they have to be considered as the citizens. And what is the conclusion here is that in a country like ours, the weakest and the poorest amongst us are often denied access to basic goods. Why I'm saying so is because once the petitioner or the person is unable to prove himself as the citizen, obviously the weakest or the poorer or the one who do not have the document or documentation is not having by the people who are not having the documentation, they would be at risk. So they do not get the basic goods and then they would be deported or they would be sent to the detention camps. So we often see rights as universal, but a political philosopher, Anna Arendt, pointed out that the origins of totalitarianism, to truly possess rights, individuals often need to belong to a political community. So what is the nutshell of this philosopher is that the rights to have rights. That means the petitioners or the people have or should have the right to have rights. That means they should have the right to prove to this court or the foreigners tribunal that they have the proof, and this proof will give them the rights as a citizens. So this is all about the Guwahati High Court judgment and then the challenges being faced by the petitioners. And then there is something again in regards the other article which talks about India needs all hands on deck. So this is in regards to the author or the writer is talking about the kind of situation which is prevailing across the world, that is the coronavirus disease 2019, and which has also spread into India, and it is slowly the cases are increasing day by day. So when the cases are increasing day by day, so it is very important that we need to keep a check on that, how many people are really or else who are really affected by the coronavirus. So there is one institution, that is National Institute of Virology in Pune, which has the capacity to make sure that it will detect or it will make sure that or it will say that the sample tested is in regards to positive of the coronavirus. So we have the National Institute of Virology, which makes sure that it screens the samples and it also makes sure that it also goes ahead with testing whether the sample is tested positive or negative. So now we will look at what the writer is talking about it on the sidelines of the coronavirus, which is also slowly gradually impacting or affecting India. So as we also know that it is slowly or gradually increasing in India, the cases, the screening samples will be sent to the NIV, that is the National Institute of Virology, which is Pune based one. So apart from that, we have 52 labs belonging to the Viral Research and Diagnostic Laboratories Network of the Indian Council of Medical Research. So what we have along with the NIV of Pune is we have 52 labs which are attached or which are into the viral research and diagnostic laboratories, and these are in regards to the network of the ICMR, and it also in regards to the, it has under the control or in coordination with the National Center of for Disease Control. So this will make sure that they would test the samples of COVID-19, and then it will make sure that the testing will have a report whether it is positive or negative by the 52 labs, because the the cases are increasing. Only NIV cannot depend, or we cannot depend on the NIV, or the NIV cannot make sure that it will be burdened. So the rest 52 labs will also screen the samples, and then it will also suspect or it will come out with the tests. And then ICMR has preempted that increase in COVID-19 will take place. So we will look at little bit technicality of this virus. So we will look at the keyword called as sequencing the genome. So when we are talking about the sequencing the genome, this genome or else the virus, pathogenic novel virus, will be actually cultured in the NIV, that is National Institute of Virology, and this National Institute of Virology has the biosafety level BS level 4 facility. So it is the only one which has the BS level 4, that is NIV is the only one which has the BS level 4 to culture the pathogenic, that is the novel virus, and thereby it will provide a comprehensive characterization of, or by making sure that the entire sequencing is done, that is the sequencing the entire viral genome. So the genome or the sequencing of the genome is done by NIV by the biosafety level facility. So NIV has sequenced not only now what's going on in regards to the COVID-19, but in the past it has also sequenced SARS-CoV-2 genome, which has been then collected by 2 patients in Kerala. Now we will look at the entire genome is sequenced. When the genome is sequenced, what it will do is it will help the researchers to understand the arrangements of the 4 chemical bases or entities. That means you have the chemical bases or the entities in the genome, and when the genome is sequenced, the researchers can understand the entities, that is chemical entities or bases. So what will these chemical entities and bases actually help the researchers? It will make sure that they will help up that this will actually make up the DNA or RNA. So this will create, the sequencing of genome will create a more understanding about the chemical basis of the virus. And then sequencing of the genome SARS-CoV will also help understand the virus, that from which place it has come and how it has spread. So sequencing of genome will help understand the chemical basis, will also help understand the researchers from where the virus has come and how it has spread. And then it is also that we have also a dozen labs in India which are having the BSL-3 facility. As we have discussed that BSL-4 facility is only with the NIV, but apart from that we have almost a dozen labs in India which are equipped with BSL-3 facility. So they also have the expertise to undertake the kind of BSL-4 facility which is having or which is in the NIV, wherein the sequencing of genome can take place. And if you look at in the last decade in India, national laboratories are developing, they are increasing, or they are trying to expertise their technology, thereby they can sequence the entire genome of virus and bacteria, that is using the latest equipment. What latest equipment? The other national laboratories are using, that is next generation sequencing NSG. So this is a keyword you need to also keep in mind, that is next generation sequencing. So why are we talking about the other laboratories which are equipped with NSG, which are with BSL 3 facility? That means we are talking about this because when the coronavirus is increasing and we have NIV which has BSL 4 facility, that genome sequencing can be done even in BSL-3 facility and also in the other laboratories which are equipped with the NSG. And we will look at how this genome sequencing can be done by a global initiative on sharing all influencer data. So this also you please make a note, global initiative on sharing all influencer data, because there could be some kind of prelims question or mains point of view, a keyword or a key paraphrase. So we have seen in the past, or there is that 263 sequences have been shared with the global initiative on sharing the all influencer data, that is GI state or GISAID, and this is a public platform which has been started by WHO in 2008. For prelims point of view, please make a note of it. So GISAID or GISAID is a public platform which has been started by WHO in 2008. Why? For countries to share genome sequences and by universities and hospitals. So not only by the countries but by various universities and hospitals, wherein they can share the genome sequence through GISAID. And in mainland China, that is in China, you have the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and we have this Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention in 31 provinces in the entire or maximum provinces of China. We have this, but in India we have NIV only in Pune. That is what I am trying to differentiate the kind of facility we have to sequence the genome or to make sure that the result is positive or negative only in NIV, that is Pune. But when we compare it with the China has this Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention in all the 31 provinces, and in US you have 37, that count is 37, and the China has the posted or the most sequenced data on GISAID. That means whatever the platform which has been initiated or started by the WHO in 2008 is maximum utilized or used by the China which has taken the top rank, and then they followed by the US, that is 37 sequence data has been used or been shared by GISAID. And now we will look at the unutilized expertise in India. As we were talking about, the NIV is only in BSL 4 facility in NIV Pune and BSL 3 facility in the dozen laboratories, and then the upcoming or the upgraded laboratories which are taking up the NSG, next generation, that technology which has been taken up. So looking into all that and then comparing it with China, we have something called as, or we look at unutilized expertise in India. So when we have that kind of opportunities or the technologies, genome sequencing, we are not really utilizing the opportunity. We should utilize the opportunity, because we have seen in the past that in the year 2018 there was a Nipah virus which has outbreak in Kerala, first in Africa, and then in regards to what you say various other countries, and then it has spread to India in 2018 to Kerala. Then the Manipal Center for Virus Research has successfully proved that they have sequenced the Nipah virus. So this is an example wherein it has already, the Manipal Center for Virus Research has used this opportunity to sequence the virus, and then when it has done it, it should make sure that we utilize the opportunity. And then with the ICMR, that is Indian Council for Medical Research, is ready to work with Department of Virology and also at the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore. So you can have a preliminary question that you one side or the left side you have all the institutions like NIV and then National Institute of Virology or National Institute of Medical Health and Neurosciences, and there are another two, and then you have the right side the cities which they are located. So this you can take it as a prelims for the major following, and with this latest we can make sure that we can, if utilized properly, the genome sequence can have more of opportunity in India. And we have also looked at how China is trying to make sure that it controls the virus which is spreading, because the SARS have actually struck in 2002 2003, or it was initially started in it has come up in China, and then the H5N1 virus also, bird flu also has started in 2003. But at that time the China was not completely prepared, or it was unprepared, but later on it has made sure that, or else in the year 2004, since then they have also come up with the Chinese National Influenza Center, and then they have built the capacity for influenza surveillance. Okay, no doubt the recent Wuhan, the COVID-19, it was a disaster for the China, but still looking at 2002 to 2014, they have made sure that they build the capacity of the infrastructure and the genome sequencing, and today they are far having the more infrastructure and the capacity building. And then looking at the China, and then looking at the GI set, and then looking at the kind of opportunities we have within India, the conclusion what I would do is, it is time for team building in India, not the time to work in silos, that is not to work in separate but to work in tandem, in coordination, in a team, that is all the various national institution across the country have to work in tandem with the NIV, with Pune, and thereby it should be an opportunity to develop these skills sets and encourage to participate, whereby we will be fully equipped for the genome sequencing, whereby any virus, whenever we do the genome sequencing, we will understand the chemical basis of the virus and the place from where it has come and how it would spread. So this is all about the topic. And then I hope this video was, or else the entire explanation of the in-depth analysis of the editorials and articles was informative and helpful for you. And then please do like and do subscribe, and then do hit the bell button for further notification when you are watching the video of Let's Crack UPSC Civil Services. I repeat, please like, subscribe and hit the bell button, and then you can also get additional 10% discount when you use my code SBT10, that is Sandeep Bhushan Thummala 10, and then make sure that you utilize the maximum Unacademy subscription. Thank you very much. See you in the next video.